On December 5, 1933, Utah became the 36th state to ratify the 21st Amendment, making it the only constitutional amendment ever to completely repeal another amendment. The 18th Amendment's prohibition on alcohol was officially over, ending a 13-year experiment that had profoundly failed. The story of the 21st Amendment is really the story of Americans recognizing a mistake and correcting it, something that's politically difficult but absolutely necessary in a functioning democracy. By the early 1930s, Prohibition's failure was undeniable. Criminal organizations were making billions from illegal alcohol sales. Gangsters like Al Capone had become household names. Violence stemming from bootlegging wars plagued American cities. The murder rate had risen dramatically. Meanwhile, Prohibition agents couldn't begin to stop the massive illegal liquor trade, and millions of otherwise law-abiding Americans regularly violated Prohibition laws. Perhaps worst of all, the Great Depression had devastated government finances. Federal and state governments desperately needed revenue, and legalizing alcohol would restore tax income while creating legitimate jobs in brewing, distilling, and hospitality industries. The 1932 presidential election became a referendum on Prohibition. The Democratic platform called for repeal. Franklin D. Roosevelt made ending Prohibition a campaign promise. When he won in a landslide carrying 42 of 48 states, the message was clear. Americans wanted their constitutional experiment with Prohibition to end. But ending Prohibition wasn't simple. It required repealing a constitutional amendment, something that had never been done before. The process would test whether Americans could admit error and reverse course on a major policy enshrined in the Constitution itself. Roosevelt took office on March 4, 1933. Within days, he signed the Cullen-Harrison Act, which legalized beer and wine containing up to 3.2% alcohol. This was permissible without repealing the 18th Amendment because the Volstead Act had defined intoxicating liquor as anything over 0.5% alcohol, a statutory, not constitutional definition. By changing the statute, Congress could immediately allow beer and wine without waiting for constitutional amendment. But fully ending Prohibition required repealing the 18th Amendment entirely. Congress proposed the 21st Amendment on February 20, 1933, even before Roosevelt took office. The amendment's text was direct. The 18th Article of Amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. The amendment included two other important provisions. Section 2 gave states authority to prohibit alcohol within their borders, acknowledging that while national prohibition had failed, individual states might choose to remain dry. Section 3 gave states only 7 years to ratify. Though this deadline proved unnecessary, ratification happened within a year. Here's where the 21st Amendment became historically unique. Congress specified that ratification would occur through state conventions rather than state legislatures. This was only the second time this method was used, the first being for the original Constitution itself. Why state conventions instead of legislatures? Repeal advocates believed conventions would better reflect public opinion. State legislators might feel pressure from anti-alcohol groups and rural constituencies that still supported Prohibition. Special conventions elected specifically to vote on repeal would give voters a clear voice. It was also faster. State legislatures might take years to act, while conventions could be called, elected, and voted within months. The strategy worked brilliantly. Michigan ratified first on April 10, 1933. Other states quickly followed. By year's end, 36 states had approved repeal through their conventions. Utah's ratification on December 5, 1933, provided the 3/4 majority needed. At 5:32 p.m. Eastern Time that day, Acting Secretary of State William Phillips certified the 21st Amendment's ratification. Prohibition was over. Americans could legally buy alcohol again after 13 years. Breweries and distilleries reopened, creating thousands of jobs during the Depression. Tax revenue flowed back to government coffers. The criminal empires built on bootlegging began to crumble. But the 21st Amendment didn't create a free-for-all. Section 2 protected state authority to regulate or prohibit alcohol. Some states and many counties remained dry for decades. Mississippi didn't repeal statewide prohibition until 1966. Even today, numerous counties and municipalities prohibit alcohol sales, their authority protected by the 21st Amendment. This state-by-state approach reflects a core principle of federalism. Different communities should be free to make different choices about how to regulate behavior that affects public morals and safety. The 21st Amendment doesn't mandate that alcohol be legal everywhere. It simply ends the federal prohibition while preserving state and local authority. The 21st Amendment teaches several crucial lessons. First, that admitting mistakes is not weakness, but wisdom. America spent 13 years learning that prohibiting alcohol created worse problems than it solved. Rather than stubbornly defending a failed policy, Americans reversed course. This flexibility is essential to self-government. Second, the amendment demonstrates that constitutional provisions aren't permanent just because they're in the Constitution. The founders wisely made amendment difficult, but not impossible. When circumstances clearly demonstrate a constitutional provision has failed, Americans can change it through the same democratic process that created it. Third, the amendment shows the importance of federalism. By giving states authority over alcohol regulation, the 21st Amendment recognized that different communities have different values and different needs. What works in one state may not work in another. This respect for local decision-making strengthens both liberty and democratic governance. Fourth, the rapid ratification through state conventions proved that when Americans strongly support constitutional change, the amendment process can move swiftly. The entire process from congressional proposal to final ratification took only 10 months, the fastest ratification of any amendment. The 21st Amendment also teaches about the limits of government power. You cannot successfully prohibit something for which there's widespread demand and inadequate moral consensus. Prohibition tried to impose one moral vision on an entire nation through constitutional mandate. It failed because millions of Americans disagreed with that vision and were willing to break the law rather than obey it. Some argue that lessons from Prohibition apply to modern drug policy. If alcohol prohibition failed, they suggest prohibition of other substances will fail too, creating similar criminal enterprises and disrespect for law. Others counter that alcohol's legal history and cultural acceptance make it different from other drugs, and that public health requires some substances to remain prohibited despite enforcement challenges. These debates show that the 21st Amendment's lessons remain relevant. Questions about what government should prohibit, how to balance public health with personal freedom, and whether prohibition or regulation better serves society are still contested today. As we reflect on the 21st Amendment, we see American self-correction at work. We tried an experiment in constitutional social reform. It failed spectacularly. Rather than defending the indefensible, Americans acknowledged the failure and reversed course. This capacity for self-correction, learning from mistakes and adapting accordingly, is essential to successful self-government. The 21st Amendment stands as the only constitutional amendment that exclusively repeals another, making it unique in American history. This uniqueness itself is instructive. It shows how rare it is for constitutional provisions to completely fail, but also that when they do, the system includes mechanisms for correction. Today, over 90 years after repeal, America has found a workable balance. Legal alcohol with extensive regulation, taxation, and age restrictions. This isn't perfect. Alcohol abuse remains a serious problem, but it's far preferable to the crime, corruption, and chaos that Prohibition created. The 21st Amendment reminds us that the Constitution is neither sacred writ immune to change, nor an infinitely flexible document to be altered casually. It's a framework for governance that can and should adapt when necessary, but only through deliberate democratic processes that ensure changes reflect sustained public judgment, not temporary passions.